going to also, as I say, I'm going to read the mission statement. Our mission, Helping Parents Heal, is a nonprofit organization dedicated to assisting bereaved parents. Through support and resources offered, we aspire to help individuals become shining light parents, meaning a shift from a state of emotional heaviness to one of hopefulness and greater peace of mind. HPH goes a step beyond other groups by allowing the open discussion of spiritual experiences and afterlife evidence in a non-dogmatic way. HPH affiliate groups welcome everyone regardless of religious or non-religious background and encourage open dialogue. Attendance at this meeting is voluntary. We hope that the participants will learn from and share with each other. Our Zoom meetings are public and available for all members throughout the world on YouTube. Helping Parents Heal offers a wide variety of speakers, allowing parents to learn about many possible ways to heal. This includes presenters covering progressive topics such as afterlife evidence and connecting with children who have passed. The views expressed by our guest speakers may or may not reflect the opinions of Helping Parents Heal leaders and members, so we ask that you take from their presentations whatever may benefit you personally. And with that, I'm going to turn this over to the beautiful Sue Frederick, Reverend Sue Frederick, excuse me, will be introducing both Carey and Laurel. So go ahead.
Well, it's my honor to introduce them because I met them when I first moved to Phoenix, Arizona. I went to the eWomen networking group, and Carey, and I think Laurel might have been there as well, but I do remember meeting Carey right away, and her light was so bright. She was such a shining soul that we just became wonderful friends. And so let me just read her and Laurel's bio. Tonight's guests are mother and daughter duo Carey Conley and Laurel Wilson. After losing two members of their family to suicide just 3 years apart, Carey's husband, who was Laurel's father, and Carey's son, who is Laurel's brother, these two strong women chose not to just survive, but to thrive in the face of adversity. Their mission is to help people of all ages identify their God-given purpose through vision. Carey and Laurel offer hope to others by helping them uncover their silver lining perspective. When they're not at home in Oklahoma City or Scottsdale, you can find them on stages worldwide, teaching everyone, young and young at heart, that it's never too late to write down your vision and start living out your true purpose. Welcome, Carey and Laurel.
Yes,
wow, Sue. Thank you so much for that introduction. We are so honored to be here, you guys. And thank you for, what's so special about this is Sue and I are great friends, and she has become very important to Laurel and I because she's been able to connect us to our loved ones on the other side. So very, very honored to be here, you all. And I just want to take a minute to just kind of give you short background on me, very short, and then have my daughter Laurel explain to you how we started working together. I have been a speaker for a really long time, unofficially and officially for about 30 years. And what I help people with is getting a very clear vision for their life out of their head and onto paper. Because what most people are doing, regardless of their circumstances, is they're kind of drifting through life, and it's not a great place to be, especially for people who are dealing with any kind of adversity like most of us are, all of us are, or they are in a place where they just need some direction and needing a lot of help in that. So I started teaching on that a long time ago, and 10 years ago, I created some curriculum around it. And then Laurel and I, we lost my husband in 2014. And then 3 years later, lost my son in 2017. And in 2019, Laurel and I co-authored this book together called Keep Looking Up. We wrote the book, you all, because we really felt like there were a lot of things that we were learning in the journey that could help other people dealing with their own adversity. Not necessarily just losing children, but just adversity overall, because so many people were coming to us because we were so public with our story, asking us, how in the world are you getting through this, right? So that's our book, and it was an honor to do this with Laurel. And after going through all this together, we started speaking as a team. So sometimes we speak together, sometimes she speaks on her own, sometimes I speak alone. But I just want to preface this before I let Laurel introduce herself to you, that we're super sensitive to where you all are at in your life right now. So many of the audiences that we speak in front of, it's not necessarily about adversity. So we just want to honor that with all of you tonight and know that this is, we just want to meet you where you're at. You may not be ready to hear everything we're ready to teach you or the exercises we're ready to do. And we just want to give you a lot of grace in that because we totally understand. All right. So Laurel, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. So as my mom kind of mentioned, we do a lot of things together and do some things individually. We have very similar paths in terms of how we've been through the same losses, but me losing a sibling and losing a dad is definitely a different experience than I know my mom has had losing a husband and a son. And there's so much more that comes to that. So it's always fun when we get to, I guess maybe fun's not the right word, but it's unique when we get to share both of our stories and hope that you can, understand or compare or relate in certain ways that we're going to share with you guys tonight. But a lot of what my mom is sharing has been interesting, that it's come to fruition over time of how she's taught a lot of the vision work that she's done in a different capacity, and how when we went through these losses, it kind of came to light. I have a different story where I didn't ever imagine myself getting on and sharing this crazy story that we've been through, or even having a book or walking anybody through grief. And so I hope that that's relatable to you in some sense, that if you're really feeling called to share your story or know that you're supposed to do something with it, don't ignore that calling, but also allow yourself some time to heal. We are very much still in the healing process, but it took us a long time to get to this point where we can share these things with you. So hopefully have an open heart as you hear these things, and know that this comes from our own journey of discovering how to navigate these losses, especially together, even though it was the same people, it was different capacities. So I hope with what we share with you tonight, it's something tangible that you can take away. That was a big piece when we were writing our book, that we wanted people to have tangible ways to work through it together and by themselves as well. So hopefully you can take some of that as well as a way. So one of the first things, and I'll actually jump in first with this, what I started realizing is, especially after my brother had passed, when I first lost my dad in 2014, I didn't exactly know how to grieve. I don't think anybody really does. There's not some kind of blueprint to do it. There's not some black and white rule book of this is how it's going to work. Here's how you get to the other side. This is how it's going to help you. And I was very much lost in the trenches of that. And I don't think I was ever wanting to figure out a way to deal with it, because that meant I was having to deal with it, right? But I noticed when I lost my brother is that me not dealing with my dad's grief was building up and compiling into also not dealing with what was happening with my brother. And it took me a while to understand this, but I was starting to see that I couldn't control what was happening around me, but I could control how I decided to move forward. And so one of the first things that I sat down and did out of necessity was that I realized I was holding on to so much of what I thought my life was going to look like that I wasn't able to move forward. I don't know if you've ever felt that, where you're physically heavy because you're truly carrying and holding on to so much that your body almost can't physically move forward because you're not allowing yourself to let go. And that's really where I was. So I want to share this with you. And this actually came to fruition when I first got asked to speak. I didn't really have the intention to speak ever by myself. It was more just sharing the book and kind of staying alongside my mom. And I got asked to speak to a young adults group. And I remember thinking, you want me to just do this by myself? Like, I was really apprehensive and it felt super vulnerable. And I thought, okay, well, what is the one big thing I want these young adults to take away? And it was that you can't control what happens to you, but you can always control how you respond and how you move forward. So I thought, okay, how am I going to write this out? Okay. So I started creating this perspective shifting exercise. And I started thinking, well, what is the one thing I say over and over and over when I'm thinking about all the things that didn't happen in my life the way that I thought they would. And all I kept saying was, what if this had turned out this way? Or what if my dad had not passed? This would look like this. Or what if Cole were still alive, my brother? Then this would be happening, right? I was holding on to so many of these things, you guys, that were what if statements, that this is why I couldn't get to the side of what is in my life. And I first saw this as the what is side is all, the good things that can come from it and all of that. But as we know, when you're in the trenches of grief, it's really hard sometimes to find something good, but you can find something purposeful. So I remember thinking, okay, I'm really, really heavy in this what if side right now because I don't know what this purpose is. I don't even know what I'm doing. I remember thinking, why am I being asked to speak? Like I'm so mixed up in my own healing. But all I knew was that I was choosing to first recognize all these what if statements so that I could start to discover what the what is of my life, right? Like, what is this purposeful piece supposed to be? What are the good things that are going to come from it? And it's not an overnight shift because it is hard when you're feeling bogged down by all those what ifs. But I promise you, if you take the time to see this and allow yourself to search for maybe the good things or the purposeful, you start to feel lighter and you start to understand that, yeah, I don't know why this is my story. I don't know why I was called to do this or why I'm walking through this. But all I know is that I'm going to choose to find the purposeful pieces, right? So the way that I'll have you guys do this, and I wanted to just give you this visual so you could hopefully take the time to do some of this yourself, is I want you to start picking some statements out. And maybe this comes quicker, maybe it doesn't, of all the things that you keep saying of what if this were different. And there's probably a lot, maybe not necessarily just around a loss you've experienced, but maybe you're not where you thought you were going to be in your life, or your family dynamic doesn't look the same. You don't live in the same state. I mean, my mom and I joke all the time, we never would have thought we would live in Oklahoma, but there's a reason that we are where we are. And so we had to put down the what if so that we could let go of the things that were holding us back. So the what is side is that maybe you've taken this and done this before, where you do see that, yeah, my story kind of sucks sometimes. And there's things that I wish were not what they were, but I'm starting to see how there's purpose to them. Doesn't necessarily mean it, makes it all that better, but you're starting to see, okay, I'm understanding now how I can use this and how I can turn it into something that is lighter and creating healing in my life. So I noticed when I shared this with some of these young adults, it was interesting how a lot of them were thinking, yeah, there's been many times that these things didn't work out, but when you look backwards, you see why they worked out the way that they did. So it's one thing as you start to move into, and I know we're going to touch on this too, that the holidays really bring to light a lot of those scenarios. There's many things that are so different about the holidays for us, as you can imagine, and I'm sure that you all are experiencing as well. But we're choosing to see, okay, how can we make this purposeful and how can we start to find those good things in these changes? So this I've done many times in my own life and continue to do, as I'm entering new seasons and as new experiences happen and those people aren't with us anymore to experience them. I hope that this is something you can come back to and start to see, okay, how do I let go of the stuff that's really heavy so that I can start finding the healing amidst all of that? I'll let my mom take over the next exercise as well.
All right. So did you want them to take some time to work on that, Laurel, or do we want to just keep moving on?
You absolutely can. And if anyone has some, questions and I should have mentioned this too, I'll start looking at the chat as you share the next task. But if anyone does have questions about that perspective exercise, or even just kind of some aha moments, I'll keep an eye on that as well.
Yeah. So definitely is number one, a perspective shift, and that's easier said than done, obviously. We all are so ingrained in what we thought should have looked like, and really making that choice every day. And I just lovingly want to tell you all that it is a choice that Laurel and I choose to make every day, to really see the perspective of there is a bigger plan in place, and most especially that our loved ones are still very much with us and working through us in all of this. So I hope that you guys will take the time to do this exercise. And if you have any questions, please put them in the chat, or any, comments you want to make, any what if this, what if that? We're very open to that. So as I mentioned to you guys at the beginning, I've been teaching people about vision for a really long time. And when I talk about people writing their vision on paper, like they've never done before, the very first thing is I go through a whole list of all the things having a crystal clear vision will help you with in your life. And one of the things that I talk the most about now, of course, is how it's helped me get through what we've been through. I'm very, very anchored in my purpose and knowing why I am to be teaching this to other people and how my loved ones are working through me. But one of the exercises that I do when I do my workshops is an exercise that I call the front row. And Laurel and I chose to teach this to you tonight because out of all the exercises that I teach, it's probably the one that most people come back and tell me later, that front row thing changed my life. And the reason we chose it for especially the holidays is because so many of us right now are getting ready to spend time with friends and family, which can be a beautiful thing and sometimes a very challenging thing, which Laurel and I have figured out as well in our journey. So many of our traditions shifted in our family after losing my husband and then my son. And what we thought it was going to look like and keeping those traditions alive with our family just didn't work so much anymore. I remember, my mother used to host a huge Christmas Eve dinner with our family, with my in-laws, with my siblings, my step siblings, the whole thing. It was our thing. And the year that after my husband passed, we went back for that, Laurel and my son and I, and it was just totally different. It was just completely different. And it was hard because we walked out of there going, why was this so awful? It's not awful, but it was just awkward. And why it was awkward was because they didn't know how to deal with us. We didn't know how to deal with them. We were trying to keep it as light as possible. And it was just a whole different thing. Right. So we learned a lot about boundaries. And I hope that this is something that will help you get through the holidays. If you have any kind of angst around, how do I deal with my family? So what you're seeing is what looks like seats. So I want you to imagine that you're standing on a stage, and you're looking out into the theater and you're seeing rows of seats. So what you see right here is a visual of 10 seats in a row. And what I want you to imagine real quickly with me is the list of 8 to 10 people that you spend the most amount of your time with. But for our call tonight, the 8 to 10 people that you're going to be seeing maybe over the holidays. I want you guys, I'm going to give you a minute to just think about that. All right. Another few seconds. All right, gang. Everybody have a list? Thumbs up? Yes? Awesome. All right. Here's the other part of the exercise. On a scale of 1 to 5, how do these people make you feel when you are with them? So this is not a judgment on them as a person. This is just how they emotionally make you feel. So obviously, a 5 would be somebody that you cannot wait to see them. Like you get around them and they just understand you. They are understanding where you're at. They meet you where you're at. They encourage you. They inspire you. They lift you up. They give you hope. They give you love, all the things. You can imagine on the opposite end of the scale are the ones that are the people that really are not meeting you where you're at. They are not encouraging you. They're not helping you through where you're at in life, nor are they encouraging you to get any better. So I just want you to take that list and just real quickly, without judging, rank those people on a scale of 1 to 5. Give me a thumbs up when you're done. How are we doing? Good. I'm seeing a lot of head shakes. Okay, good. Here's what I want you guys to know. And this is a chapter in the book that Laurel and I wrote, is that we learned that not everybody could be our front row people when we needed them. And it's hard at some points because you want to get bitter about that, or you want to have higher expectations from them, especially if they're close family members, right? And we had to really work through that, you guys, because there were some people that we thought, what the heck just happened? Like they either went MIA or they weren't there for us like we thought they should be. And then it just dawned on us that we needed to give them a whole lot of grace and mercy, because they are not walking in our shoes. They have not experienced what we have experienced, and they just didn't know how to deal. And so I want you guys to understand, number one, that people, for the most part, don't do things intentionally to hurt you. 2, they're trying to figure out their own stuff. And because they have not been through what we've been through, they don't know how to deal with it. And the last thing I want to teach you is to understand how to still be with these people if you need to be, like family members on the holidays or whatever. How to be able to have a relationship with them where you are able to communicate with them, but not allow them to get into you internally. So I had a mentor years ago that said to me, there are some people in my life that I let talk to me, and there are other people that I allow them to talk into me. There is a difference. So I can have dialogue with family members out of love, out of respect, out of reverence for them, but not necessarily allow their opinions or their feelings or their lack of helping me or whatever my expectations are to get into me, right? The last thing I want to tell you about this front row thing, the most important thing you can do in your life is to fill your front row with more 5s. Find some people who, like this group right here, know where you're at, encourage you where you're at, understand you where you are at, give you grace and mercy all the way through, and most especially are going to help you move forward, right? So how is this exercise for everybody? Share in the chat with me if this has helped you in any way. Do you have any questions that you want to share with me?
Yeah, and I hope you can see the chat. I think because I'm sharing my screen, I can't see it. So I apologize if I've missed anyone's questions, but I just realized I can't see it. But if you want to keep an eye on that, Mom, I'll cover the last piece of this boundaries exercise. So I wanted to take a step further with you all, that we've kind of looked at it in a sense of who you're going to be around the holidays. But when we share this exercise, it really is an evaluation for your life. And so this piece of it is more of the personal evaluation of this, because yes, we can sit here all day and move people around our audience and, kind of understand where they are coming from in our world, but also seeing, okay, where am I on that when it comes to those relationships? And so this personal survey that we'll give you guys just a minute or two to do. And, if you want to drop anything in the chat, Mom, if you'll kind of just manage that as well. But when you start to look at this audience of your life beyond just the holidays, as you're moving forward, You become a different person when you go through grief. I fully believe that. You walk into this different personality and you kind of understand the world maybe more empathetic, whatever that looks like. And you start to see that beyond just family, there are some shifts that you want to make in terms of kind of the people that you are spending your time with, what you are spending your time on, the communities you want to be around, even being a part of this group and having people that understand. You start to make those shifts. And so you start looking at yourself of, okay, those people in the front row are the ones, the spaces that I'm wanting to fill. What do those people look like? Who are those people? And if you're seeing that row needs to be filled up a bit more, this is going to help you see that. And so I want you to just take a minute as I talk through it to start working on this as well. But list out some of the characteristics of what make up those people in your life that you're giving a 5 or a 10. Either way, you can go as high as you want, but those people that are really your go-to, kind of your hype people, if you want to call them that. But list out what those characteristics are, because if you're needing to fill more of those spaces, these are the characteristics of people that you want to be inviting into your life. So when you're writing these down of, okay, well, this person looks like somebody that maybe is really empathetic, or I'm needing somebody that is just higher energy right now because mine is just really low. What does that look like of who are those people? And it's kind of crazy how you start to find them, or they start to find you when you start putting it out there. This was hard for me, especially being a 20-year-old losing my dad. I was walking through grief a lot younger than most people were. So I needed other people who could understand at my age. I didn't have many of them at the time. So when I started asking for those kind of people to come into my life, they slowly started to show up. So as you start to fill that out, this is going to kind of show you what that looks like. But on the personal end, especially as we're talking about the holidays and being around family, is there a relationship that you wish was healthier? Maybe this is the first time that you've thought about it. They're like, oh yeah, I kind of do wish that was a little bit different now that I'm seeing that I'm not putting that person or wouldn't put them in my front row right now. And how can you improve that relationship? Is that on you to maybe have a conversation or to start showing up for them more? What does that look like? And what qualities do you possess that you think make you a 9 and a 10 in other people's lives? Maybe you're not necessarily being that for somebody else that's in your front row. And that's one way that you're wanting to kind of start showing up more for them, if that's in your capacity. And then what areas do you want to work on personally? I think it's always good just to evaluate this of, okay, what can I improve on too if I'm wanting to start bringing some healthier relationships or improving mine? Where am I in that needs to start meeting that person in the middle? And the last thing is, of a scale of 1 to 5, how do you feel about the boundaries in your life? Maybe this is the first time that anyone's given you a visual of what this looks like, or it wasn't something that you thought you had permission to place in your life. I think boundaries kind of get this bad rap of, you're burning bridges or cutting people off, but it's really just protecting your own healing and your own energy, especially as you're walking through something challenging. So just know you're allowed to have those. They can be loving and they can be set in place to actually improve that relationship as well. So just good little personal evaluation. I don't know if there's anything in the chat too. I just want to make sure I'm not missing, Mom, if anyone's come through as well.
Lots of really great feedback on the front row. I'm glad that this hit you guys. Like I told you earlier, this has been one of those things that in everything we teach, this front row thing really hits home with people, especially during the holidays, I think. Right.
Well, I think that the really important thing that you're saying is just establishing boundaries and not cutting
Yes.
people out of your lives, because a lot of times people feel that they need to just cut off relationships with people that are not the right fit right now in our journeys, but being able to just explain that these are just boundaries, and the people who are maybe third row people right now might, and I found that myself in my own life, move up to become front row people later on.
So true.
Never write them off, because they can become very important in your lives again. So this is a great system. Yeah.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Yeah, it's just amazing, you all. And again, don't judge this. This is just how it is, right? Everybody's walking through their own stuff right now. And we just have to give each other a lot of grace and mercy. Before Laurel and I went through what we've been through, we would have never known how to help somebody going through this. So we just have to understand that. So last piece that I just want to share with you all is the thing that I teach was which is a little bit about creating a vision for your life moving forward. So many people, after all this, came forward and said, how in the world are you still functioning? And I have to honestly tell you, it's because I have a very strong understanding of my vision and my purpose in life. And Sue's been such a great inspiration for me in this, to help me bring messages from the other side, letting me know, yep, this is your path. This is what you're called to do. It's unfortunate that it is what it is, the way it is, but I am very clear on that path. And again, I want to say what I said at the beginning. You may not be ready to hear any of this right now, but I want you to know that you can have a vision for the future moving forward. And you can use is not the right word. You can empower yourself and others with your experience and utilize the help we're getting from the other side from your loved ones. Laurel and I are very clear. We are getting a lot of help from her dad and her brother. So the last thing I'm going to leave you with is an exercise you can do on your own. And I hope that you will feel somewhere over the next couple of weeks, feel led to do this, where I want you to think futuristic, and I want you to think 3 years out. I want you to take some quiet time and find a journal and a piece of paper and literally date it at the top as if it's 3 years from that day. And after you write the date, write how old you will be on that day. And how old will your family members and your close friends be on that day? Right? Because what I have done, I've done this with thousands of people now. What it does when I get people to think about that is they start thinking about what's coming, God willing, what's coming from the universe, from God. If we're all still here 3 years from now and we're 3 years older, what do we see happening? Everything that I do right now, my choice to move to Oklahoma to be near Laurel's family, the things that I'm doing inside of my business and the people that I work with and workshops I do, it's all based on the influence and the impact that I want to make over the next 3 years, especially now that I turned 60 this year, right? It's all about the legacy I'm leaving. I really, truly want to give you that little piece of hope to think about. Can you envision a future that you want to create it to look like how you want it to look? And I say this with a whole lot of love, right? Because it's not what we thought it was going to be. But there is a reason and a purpose for everything. So I hope you'll take some time to do that. It's a great time of year to reflect and kind of think, even if you can just come up with one thing, just one thing. If you can't do the big vision, it's just something to give you an anchor of hope through the holidays. All right.
Sue, did you want to mention anything too? I saw your hand go up. I want to make sure I called you out if you wanted to.
I just wanted to tell the two of you that you're such beautiful lights. I mean, even the way you pose these questions saying, how can you be more of a 9 or a 10 for other people? Sometimes when we're in our grief, we don't think that way. We just think, how can other people support me? But as you two especially know, when we turn that around and say, even though I'm in pain, how can I be more loving and compassionate and kind to the people, even who don't know how to say the right thing to me? Even the people who shun me because they don't know what to say, how can I be kinder and more open-hearted to them? And that's what I love about your work, Carey and Laurel. You're just the kindest, sweetest people. And having known Carey for a while, I know that that's 24/7, that Carey is always kind and loving. And it's just an honor to know you, Carey.
Yeah. You have been a source of peace for me, Sue, and so has this organization, Meeting Elizabeth. Coming to the conference in August was mind-blowing, and I'm just so appreciative of that. And, you know, we are honored, Laurel and I, to be able to come and pour into all of you. And we hope that we've given you hope in your journey. We hope that we have given you something that if you are just really, really still heavy in your grief process right now, that we give you something that you can anchor to and keep moving forward. And I want to gift you guys, we have our Keep Looking Up book, but I also have a workbook called Vision is Victory that people can actually walk through the process of writing their vision out. And so if you text the word, I think it's the word victory to 26786, you'll get a free downloadable version of that workbook so you can work on your vision whenever you're ready. Doesn't have to be now, doesn't have to be in the holidays. Connect with Laurel and I, we're everywhere. We're on Instagram, we're on Facebook, LinkedIn, all the things. And we're honored to be a part of this organization, Elizabeth, and just truly hope that you guys will find some peace in what we've given you today.
Thank you. This has been wonderful. And it is really important to be able to have these, first of all, the boundaries that you've mentioned during the holiday season. I think that we also have to realize that our family and friends are not going to be in the same place that we are in terms of our grief journey. So a lot of times when I'm speaking about Morgan or speaking about Chelsea, especially in the very early years, I knew that it made everyone uncomfortable. So it made me feel uncomfortable, but all I wanted to do was talk about them and talk about Christmases or holidays past or Thanksgivings past. And of course, we had tons of pictures. We still do have tons of pictures of Morgan up in our house. And I think that that also was something that was off-putting. In fact, I just want to say, so that if this happens to anyone else in our group, that they'll understand that it's fairly normal. My sister didn't want to even speak to me for about a year after Morgan transitioned, not because she didn't love me, not because she didn't love Morgan, but as she explained to me, she loved him too much. And seeing me and even coming over to my house just brought these memories back to her. So we are all experiencing loved ones in our friend circle and friends as well, who are also trying to heal in their own way. And it's difficult, but at the same time, it gets better and better. I mean, my sister and I spend tons and tons of time together now. It's not forever, but it is good to be able to look at that audience, figure out who you want in that front row for however long it needs to be, maybe switch people out as you move forward, as people grow and understand where you are in your journey and where they are in their journey as well. So anyway, I see that Margaret is writing something. Boundaries are important because they help us be intentional with the energy we surround ourselves with, the kind of supportive, kind energy. It isn't personal, it's intentional. You're right, Margaret, exactly. Anyway, but I do appreciate the fact that you have this workbook. So there were people asking in the chat box how to obtain the workbook. It's not downloadable, but if someone texts that number and victory to that number, they'll be able to.
And
Yeah.
Carey, you just put that in the chat again, didn't you?
I did. And I'm going to also put my email in here for those people who don't text. You can email me and I'll send you a code so that you can get the downloadable free version of that book.
Okay.
I also thought we should give Laurel a big hug because Laurel has a baby due in how soon, Laurel?
He's coming February 7th, unless he decides to come earlier. That's his eviction notice.
That's
Yeah,
amazing.
please.
And you have so much grace and so much, you're such a good public speaker, and it's not easy being a Shining Light sibling and having another very young child at home right now while you're trying to speak on Zoom. And this has been so wonderful. Margaret saying Aquarian, which, so I guess that maybe that's going to be the case. Do you know yet exactly the day that and the sex of your child?
Yeah, so it's a boy, and I'll be having I had a C-section with my first, so I'll have another C-section, which is scheduled for February 7th. But if he comes earlier, then we'll see how that goes. But as of now, he's being evicted February 7th. So
Being evicted.
evicted. It was kind of funny scheduling it. My doctor was like, "What day sounds good to you?" I was like, "Well, you tell me." So, yep, I'm excited.
Oh, that's wonderful. And
Actually, your son was picking that date, Laurel, through you.
Really
Yes.
interesting. That's funny. Yeah, it was. I don't, and there's no, I guess, big significance about that date yet. So, yeah, hopefully he stays put, to be honest.
well, I would love for people who are on here, if it's not too difficult, to for you to tell a little bit about your own healing journeys, because I know that obviously your Carey, your husband, so Laurel's father passed, and then I think it was only 2 years later that your son and brother passed. And maybe just explain to people, it's so beautifully described in your book, but maybe you could just tell a little bit about that so that people understand that you are in a beautiful place right now, but it wasn't always an easy journey for you.
Do you want to go ahead and do you want us to start, Elizabeth? Do you want Laurel and I to talk? Laurel, do you want to start?
Talk a little bit about, I mean, you started out living in Colorado, and so maybe you could just tell a little bit about
Sure.
that, and how you've moved forward and gotten to the place where you are right now, which is really amazing.
Yeah, happy to. And you can go ahead and probably stop screen sharing, Laurel, if you want.
Okay.
So I am from Colorado. I grew up there and met my husband in high school and followed him to college to Oklahoma State. And then we got married straight out of college and moved back to Colorado so that we could be near our family and raise our kiddos. So that's where we are originally from. And then when my son graduated from high school in 2010, he accepted a job in Arizona at Channel 12. And Laurel, at that point, because we had brainwashed our kids to be fans of Oklahoma State, Laurel was getting ready to go into her junior year at OSU. And it was that July that my husband took his life. So we got through all of that, got Laurel back to school, got my son to Arizona so he could start his job. And I started spending half of my life between Colorado and Arizona so that I could be half-time there, half-time in Colorado, part-time in Oklahoma to be with Laurel. It was kind of a whirlwind few years. And then unfortunately, as I mentioned, 3 years later, my son also took his life. And at that point, Laurel was seriously involved with her now husband, and they got married. They got engaged a month later, got married a year later, and decided to settle down in Oklahoma. Although I've been working on them forever to get them to move to Arizona, but that's not going to happen I don't even know if that's going to happen. But so I decided to move here a year and a half ago so that I could be near them, be close to my grandsons, and just be a part of their life. So every step of the way, we just tried to figure it out. Like, what are we supposed to learn from this? How are we supposed to still honor them for the life they had here and the life that they're still working through us? Because we are very aware, as I said all the time, that they are very much involved in this mission that we are on. We see signs all the time, and it gives us a whole lot of peace. So Laurel and I, like I said, we speak sometimes together, sometimes separately. She's super busy with her kiddos now. So yeah, we've been through a lot of transition, but every step of the way, we just thought, okay, how can we make this work?
That's beautiful. And I know you talk about the signs all the time, and I want to give Laurel a
Yeah.
chance as well, but maybe once Laurel has spoken, or maybe even while you're speaking, you talk a little bit about the signs that you're getting from your husband and from your son. It would really be fascinating to hear that.
Yeah, so I definitely, we share this all the time that we've lost obviously the same people. And I said this at the beginning, but it was very different relationships and very different time frames of life, being halfway through college. In those first 20 years of my life, I'd never experienced tragedy. Not a lot of 20-year-olds at least do, or some, I guess there are a lot that do, but just not anyone in my world had been through anything drastic, especially not a loss by suicide. And so losing my dad in a different state than I was at was also very challenging because I felt very disconnected from what was happening in Colorado while I was in Oklahoma. And so I think it was, and I decided to go back to college and finish. I questioned actually that because I was exactly halfway through and I thought, am I supposed to keep going there? Like, do I leave Colorado? How do I navigate this change? But I think looking back now, those 2 years were kind of a safe space for me to not be so far into what was happening, but it also created where I wasn't processing the grief as well because it wasn't right in front of me. And so it wasn't until I got out of college that I started thinking, okay, I really need to start figuring out how I'm processing in this, or how do I process grief? We learn, and we kind of joke about this, that I'm not the touchy-feely kind of person that wants to sit around and, hug and cry. And that's wonderful if, that's how someone processes it. But I quickly realized I needed to talk it through. And so for me, within my grief journey, counseling has been very helpful. But this is interesting, and this may not be something that people agree with, but I do think counselors come and go in seasons of your life. So I've actually had 3 different counselors, and I now have a male, which is funny because I've had 2 female counselors and then a male. And I realized I connected so well with this male counselor because I think very much alike that he does. So if it's something that, you're going through counseling or have considered it, I kind of thought something was wrong with me, where I was thinking, why am I going through 3 different counselors? But they all had such a different purpose in such a different time of my life. That one was with me when I first got married and was having my first baby. And I'm now going through a whole different journey of having a second one and being older and now talking to a male. I'm like, these people are meant to be in the time frame that they are in my life. But it's taken me a while to understand that no healing journey is this straight and narrow path. So it's that part of it personally has been the counseling piece for me. But the other side of it was that it's taken me a while to be really vulnerable. And it was kind of something that you had mentioned too, Elizabeth, that your family was uncomfortable with you talking about, your loved ones. So that almost deterred me from sharing so much about it, because I thought, well, if they're uncomfortable with it, everybody else is going to be. But when I started opening it up, other people found me that had walked through the same thing and were wanting me to talk about it. So it was interesting how that helped me heal, and then also got to this place that, okay, now I'm actually speaking about my story. And, it's just taken so many different turns that I've kind of enjoyed the ride, to put it in a strange term, I guess. But it's kind of finding yourself along the grief path of what is helping you versus what's going to help somebody next to you. And the signs too, I should have mentioned that I have all my butterflies behind me, but that was something that I started noticing when I was in college. I started seeing monarch butterflies everywhere, and I started noticing them a lot. So it wasn't like I would just see one and you'd be, oh, there's a butterfly, whatever. They were starting to land on my car, and they were coming out in times that butterflies are not in season, if that's a way to put it. And I started thinking, where is this coming from? And so if you look it up, birds, dragonflies, butterflies, a lot of creatures, if you want to call them that, fly, are very angelic symbols. So I started seeing butterflies at these times that I especially needed them. And so I started noticing, and we've listened to this book called Signs, that, it talks all about how you can ask for them and you can start to see them when you need them. So these are actually real butterflies too. I was gifted them before my husband and I got married, and we released butterflies on our wedding day as a symbol. So they are everywhere.
That's absolutely beautiful. And you are just so eloquent in the way that you explain this. And I just am so impressed And the fact that you're not too touchy-feely. I have one daughter who is like that. I have another one who's a hugger, and I think that they have had very different healing journeys, and I think both of them have worked. And it's important to be able to honor the way that you want to feel as you're moving forward, and be able to and the grief journey is not straight. It's windy, and you sometimes take 2 steps forward and sometimes you'll take a step backward, but it doesn't mean that you're not moving forward the whole time. So it's beautiful the way that you describe it. Thank you. And I love the butterflies. That's just so exciting. And what a beautiful thing to do a butterfly release for your wedding as well. That's just perfect. And Carey, have you also had signs that you recognize? Is it butterflies for you as well?
My son and I shared the love for music, and so he comes through in songs. There are a couple songs that are just, very clearly coming from him at a certain time, because they have meaning for us in our family, or certain points in our life. There's one song in particular that when it comes up, was a part of when he and Laurel were literally toddlers, and Laurel and I will be somewhere random, and all of a sudden that song will come on, and we'll like, yep, okay, Cole's here. So it's a lot of music. I also get a lot of confirmation from him that I'm on the right path, because I ask all the time, am I going the right direction? Am I doing the right thing? And I'll just get random little something, right? Just knowing. So I think it's important that people know, like Laurel said, that you can ask for the signs, because they're begging to give us the signs. I think that was the biggest message I took away, Elizabeth, from the conference, is how much they are wanting to talk to us all the time. All right.
They want to talk to us just as much as we want to talk to them. So
we just have to ask.
Yes.
So I just asked. This is so funny that Laurel brought up the butterfly thing. I don't know that you guys will be able to see this over the screen, but I asked for a sign a couple days ago. I was furniture shopping because I just bought a house, and she told you about the butterfly thing. So I don't know if you guys can see this.
Yes, we can.
Okay. This is a huge wall mural I found in a furniture store, and it's all mini butterflies.
Oh,
And I was like, okay, all right.
So did you get it? And are you going to have
Yeah, that's my question. Did you get it, Carey?
The price tag is a little deterring. It didn't come through on that
They
end.
want a lot for those butterflies, but I posted that on Instagram, and just randomly saying, look at the sign I got today. And so many people responded to that. I'm like, okay, maybe I'm supposed to buy that.
Well, maybe there'll be an after Christmas sale.
Yeah. So, we just, we're just being aware that we are being guided. We don't, we wish things could be different, like you all do. I know, we miss them terribly, but we have to take what is and use the purpose moving forward, because that's all we know to do. So we ask for a lot of guidance and a lot of signs every day.
Yeah, and I have to share a crazy story too, because we were talking about this baby's name being Coulter. So if you feel silly asking for signs, and it's okay to say that, because there are times I'm like, this is, even to myself, I'm like, this is ridiculous. Like, what am I, I'm asking for this like very specific sign. It feels different. It's not like this normal thing that we're used to, I guess. And so I actually had miscarried February of this year, and it was very unexpected. Obviously, I don't think anyone really expects that, but I had miscarried. And so for Mother's Day, so very first week of May, Mother's Day, I decided I was going to go get myself a bracelet with the birthstone of the baby would have been born in September. So I thought, okay, I want to go get this bracelet. And it was at Kendra Scott, because they can do birthstones. And so I went, and I was just feeling really down. Obviously, Mother's Day, like I have a 2-year-old son, but I was just grieving losing this baby, this whole thing. And we were really kind of in this trenches of, is this going to happen again? What does this look like? Whatever. And so I remember thinking, I was like, all right, Cole, just show me a sign that you are watching over the next baby that we're going to have, whatever this is going to be and all that. And so I go into Kinder Scott and it's super, super busy because it's Mother's Day. And I got my bracelet and they were putting them behind the counter and putting numbers next to them so that when you were done shopping, you could go up and give your number. And they'd never done this before being in there. So she hands me the number 11, which Cole's birthday was 11/11. So I thought, oh, okay. So I get the number 11 and knew that was like a sign from Cole that he was, guiding and protecting me. Well, little did I know I was already pregnant at that point. I found out about 2 weeks later that I was pregnant with this baby. And now this baby is going to be named after him. So I was like, oh, okay. He knew all along what this plan was going to be. And, I was very emotional that day, but he was already showing me that it was already happening and it was going to be another boy and he was going to share his name and all that good stuff. So it feels kind of uncomfortable at first, but they really do show up and show you what they're working on for you.
That's beautiful. And my goodness, 11/11 is definitely a sacred number.
That's right.
Yep.
11 is one of the master soul numbers that's all about pure connection to divine inspiration and intuition. And he's just handing that acknowledgement to you.
Look at the jersey behind my picture.
Oh, there's 11s all over it.
Is it 11?
Joe.
I love it.
Yeah, we've done numerology with Sue on my son. I think we did my husband too at one point, Sue, but
Yeah, we did. I was just going to go get your folder to remember
Oh,
everybody. If you,
Yeah.
but yeah, there were master soul numbers all through that chart.
Yeah. 11/11 is Cole's birthday, and we did my birthday, Laurel's birthday. We're very clear about what we were destined to create, and so grateful. What's interesting, I'll share one last story, is Laurel's best friend, who's like another daughter to me, had her baby boy last year, 6 weeks early. He wasn't due until the end of December.
7 weeks.
Yep, she was 7 weeks early, and he was born on 11/11.
Perfect.
And not even a high risk pregnancy, nothing. Her water broke at 30 weeks and he stayed put until 11/11 and was born.
Oh my God, I love that.
So lots of stories. We're just working through it, being guided every day. We ask every day for more healing, for the right people to come alongside us in our journey. We've had several people like you all, I'm sure, have had some people that you thought were going to be with you through the long haul that haven't. And, that just is what it is. But we are blessed that we have some people that have just graced us in the journey and have understood where we are at every step.
It's beautiful. And I agree. There are people that might drop out of our lives for a little while, maybe forever, but we have some incredible people who come into our lives as well. And we know that our kids have sent them to us. Our kids or our loved ones who are on the other side have sent them to us. And I am just so grateful to have had you speak to us. I know that people will be wanting to download your workbook. So I know that I'll put it in the YouTube video so that people will find it easily. If you have any closing thoughts that you'd like to tell us, please let us know. Or if Sue does, Carey and Laurel, you're both absolutely beautiful and so eloquent. And this has been a wonderful evening. Anything that you'd like to end with?
I would just like to say I feel so blessed to be always blessed to be in the presence of the Helping Parents Heal gang, but to have Carey and Laurel share their graceful, the word grace is just what you two are. And to be able to talk about being a better person for our loved ones who can't deal with the grief and don't know what to say to us. So how do we be more kind and compassionate? That takes a highly evolved soul to bring that up. And that's what you all are. And that's what you do. So thank you.
Thank you.
That's for sure. And we truly appreciate it. And this has been such a nice evening. It's been nice to have Joe on here as well. And again, we're going to have Sue and Joe speaking about the thin place coming up in January. So I hope that all of you will join us. But before we do so, we'd like to say good night and thank you to Carey and Laurel. So if you guys would like to.
Good night and thank you both.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. It was an honor.
See you soon.
Sue as well.
Thank you.
Here. Take care, everyone. Have a wonderful evening.
Thanks, Elizabeth.
Thanks. Take care. Let's see.